The stream will begin shortly. Right, well, can't sit around all night. Hello and welcome to Garblag Games. I'm Pete, and thank you for joining me here on Twitch or YouTube, whichever one you're joining me on. I am just jumping on tonight to do a little bit of world building and chat. So I've got the chat open here if you've got any questions, and I'm just going to go through some stuff, do some work on the World Mountain setting, which I've been going on about a bit recently a lot. We've got our current show, Tears of the Dreamer, which is a Pathfinder Second Edition show, which we're streaming every Thursday night at about 9:15-ish, if I can get the kids to bed in time. And let me show you the big picture. What I'm trying to do is flesh out. Oh, hello. That's huge. Oh, let's get it in here. My one piece of decent artwork that I've done for this. The layers of the world mountain. So this is my setting that I've come up with. I originally devised it for D&D 5th edition, but I've been so taken with Pathfinder 2nd edition since it's come out, and I've got my hands on all the books, that I thought, you know what, I'm gonna work this for Pathfinder. It also seemed it was a bit more customizable. There was a few more options to it, a little bit more complexity than D&D 5th edition, which is a really good game. I love playing D&D 5th edition. There's loads of stuff for it though, and I thought that Pathfinder was probably a good option just to explore some stuff. So I have got a document. Let me see if I can bring this up. That might be useful. Hang on. So the idea of this, I'm a massive fan of the Planescape setting for Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd edition. You may hear a helicopter going over my shed. Studio, I should say, second studio. And I've always found it a massively interesting setting. I've also found it quite difficult for people to get into, get their heads around. I'm also a big fan of dwarves, and a lot of settings sort of have elves as the prime kind of the powerful or wiser um, race or ancestry, as we'll see in Pathfinder Second Edition. I wanted dwarves to have been the first people, and I have made it that way. So let's have a look. Hang on. Let me bring this window up for you, lovely people. Let me just capture that. So this isn't as polished. This is like, as you can tell, as not as a polished stream as our other ones, where we have nice overlays and it's all captured beforehand and we've tidied it all up. This is going to be a little bit more nuts and bolts. I'll show you some of my thinking, some of my stuff, some of our general things. So it'll be a little bit of plug, sorry, but I'll generally point you towards 3 things. I'm going to talk a lot about Pathfinder 2. I've got a load of the books here as well, which I'm going to look at. Oh, try not to reflect the light of the screens. In later episodes of this, what I'm going to try and do is get a top-down camera set up, get some PDFs, and then I can put some of the stuff on the screen for you guys to see as well. But I'll be referring to the Pathfinder books, so if you've got those, then that's cool. We've already had a comment from the Xanderd on YouTube, on the YouTubes. I wanted dwarves to be the first people, and I have made it that way. A true man of culture, I see. You got it. So here we go. Let's have a look. This is my Patreon. Now, I'm not sending you towards something that costs money. I'm sending you towards something that's free. So as you can see, there's various posts that are locked. I've been sharing all the Inkarnate maps I've been creating for Tears of the Dreamer. I have been giving to patrons. So all the battle mats that I've used, and they're kind of isometric ones rather than top-down ones, which I'm actually really enjoying. They give quite a Baldur's Gate kind of feel to the game, which is quite cool. What you can see, I've got some of them here. So this is an example. This is kind of the campaign map, and I'll show you where that is on the main map a little bit later. But in here, we've got a World Mountain Update Pathfinder 2 edition, and this file is free. It's a setting PDF, and basically it gives you a little primer into what the World Mountain is all about. So just thought I'd show that to you. There you go. It's all free. It's all quick and easy. Done my little dungeon drawing there for the name, which was quite fun. And this goes through Ondrum, which is the name of the World Mountain. Let me bring this in here a little bit so you can see my face. Whether or not that's a good thing, we shall see. Let's do this. So I'm live, messing about with OBS. Here we go, so that you can see a little bit more of me. There you go. So, hey, oh, just to let you know, there'll be a slight interval when my wonderful wife brings me a hot chocolate shortly. If she brings me a hot chocolate. So this is talking about Ondrum and the World Mountain, the physical and mystical structure. Because as you can see, this has got these different layers, and they are all different types of world. And each of those layers is a world itself, but they're all encapsulated by this World Mountain. And you can climb up through the World Mountain, descend through the World Mountain. You can fly if you have the strength, endurance, magic, power enough to fly up and around and above. You can do so. And Ether Beyond is kind of like the astral plane. So this goes through each of the layers of the World Mountain, the planetize, so which planes, and I think I may need to do 1 or 2 tweaks on this to go from 5e cosmology to Pathfinder 2 cosmology, but I think I've done some of that. So instead of Shadow Fell, they have the Shadow Plane and all those kinds of things. What I want to do is I wanted this to be able to slide into Pathfinder 2 as it stands, with all of the I was going to say gumph, all of the fluff in the books that there already is. So let me bear with me one moment. Let me get the stack of books. Stack o books. So we don't need the bestiary right now, although that is a very handy book. We have, let's have a look. I can put those over there as well. And so, FYI, if you want one of these, core rulebook, or one of these, Game Master Guide, we're doing a giveaway, which ends in 8 days' time. Go to episode 2 of Tears of the Dreamer on our YouTube channel and comment on there with your favourite Pathfinder 2 class. They're very close to the D&D ones, so you may be able to guess it if you haven't played it yet. And why you like that class so much. And we are going to pick one winner live on air on the 30th of April on the channel to win their choice of one of these Fantata books. There we go. Cool. So, what I saw. Oh, sorry. There's lots of things on the table here. There's very, very scant information in this book about the planes as they exist in the Pathfinder 2 world. And to be honest, I played Pathfinder First Edition quite a bit, but I never really got into Golarion and the world. I played a few adventures in it, but I've always been someone who wants to sort of create their own world. Whenever I play, I think 95% of the time I GM. So, you know, I'm generally building a world, coming up with something. That's kind of part of why I like these games so much. So there was little information in here about planes, but that's fine. That's not what I'm expecting in there. And then I think we got a bit more information in here. Which is useful. Planes, page 136, and that is a good 10 pages of information around. I really like this Games Master Guide, and I'm gonna I may do a quick segue into why I like this book. The planes, and it's good because they have things like traits for the planes. You kind of talk about what the scope of the plane is. It's gravity, it's time, it's morphic traits, it's essence, and then you can kind of create stat blocks for planes. And a lot of this is a toolkit, I would say, for people to build their own things and to give examples of how those things should look in Pathfinder 2. I know some people are a bit disappointed that this isn't another book that says this is how you are a games master. And to be fair, there's 50 pages of that at the beginning of the book. And I think 50 pages of people telling me how to run battles and how to create stories alongside all the other books that are out there is just fine. What I need is what are all the tools and tricks of the Games Master in Pathfinder 2. That's what I think is more interesting for me. So, I mean, feel free to disagree with me in the comments if you want to. And if you've got the Game Mastery Guide, then I really like it. And I'm using this in our Tears of the Dreamer campaign. I'm actually doing something slightly different with magic items. So I'm trying to follow the rules on in here, which you'll find. Can I just say the index is really good? If we just go to treasure, treasure tables, 530. So in here, oh no, it's rewards, isn't it? Anyway, in here it tells you at each level of your adventuring party roughly what permanent and consumable magic items they should have, how much gold they should have, all that kind of thing to keep it moving at the right pace, and how the mechanics of the game are built, which is quite handy. I'm not going to stick to that 100%, but it's good to have that kind of signpost there. What I'm doing with magic items in Tears of the Dreamer, which you'll see on tomorrow night's episode, hopefully if the guys read what's on their Roll20 character sheets, I've got a couple bit more to do, is that items that they have on them are going to start becoming magical, and will be imbued with magic based on the layer that they're on, the area of it, and the other influences on them. Anyway, so more about planes in here, and I'll do a bit more about this book in a minute, because I'm going to be using that tonight. And last but not least, I've got the Lost Omens character guide, which, although the Lost Omens whole thing is about Galarian, and this is like part of this is like the setting and a lot about the world. What it has in here is loads of ancestry stuff, and I didn't want someone to have bought this and not be able to use the World Mountain. The Zandad, I don't think I've ever heard of magic items working that way. That's really cool. Yeah, no, I really like it. And in this book, if we go to page, sorry, what I'll try and do is next time get a top-down camera so I can have the book out and I can just go through and you guys can see what I'm looking at. But page 94, if you're following along at home, as John likes to say on his show. Relics. It talks about extraordinary magic items and how you can give gifts to magic items to make them slightly more special. But there are varying levels. There's minor, major, and grand gifts. And minor gifts can be on an item from first level. And there's a really interesting bit. It's some extraordinary magic items grow in power along with a character, gaining abilities that add to an adventurer's legend. These are called relics, and owning one can define a character more than any other magic item could. So I really like that. That's what I'm doing with Tears of Dreamer, and in here it says some relics might begin as ordinary items with a rich history. They might be part of a character's starting gear, only to have their true powers uncovered later during play. Boom, done it. So I've asked each of the players, Simon, Leon, Ben, and Simon, 2 Simons, yes, to tell me an item that is dear to their character and has some deeper meaning or some, and you've probably picked up on one of them already if you've been watching the show. And let's see how we're doing. Oh, yeah. Yes, so I've asked them for items that are important to them, and these items are going to become more magical. Now, bear with me one moment while I fetch my hot drink. I won't be very long. Talk to you shortly. Right, sorry about that little pause there. Thanks for staying with me. I've got my hot drink, and I'll try not to slurp down the microphone. I can mute that while I have that drink. But yes, so relics, really good fun. Games Mastery Guide, I think a very cool tool set. If anyone's got any other questions about it, I may even do a little review video on it because it's very cool. Right, cool. So, planes, that's what we're talking about. Sorry, I will randomly ramble off and segue into different areas If you want to ask me about anything that you see on screen, please put it down there. Hola, Paula. Hello. Welcome. Thank you for watching us on Twitch. Right. Cool. So what we're doing is we're going through I'm just showing a brief overview of the Ondrum the World Mountain Pathfinder Primer document that you can get from my Patreon for free. There's no need to sign up for this. I want people to be able to have a look at this and play around with it. And quite a few people have taken this off and will be having a go with it. So there's each of the layers has planetize and then the pantheon of that layer. And in my world, I wanted it to be so that there weren't the human gods and the dwarf gods and the goblin gods. There were just the gods. And you pray to the god. All the gods are real. And you pray to all of them. They give you powers, or they don't. They listen to your prayers. They do, they don't. A human could pray to a god that is visualized as gnomish, or a giant, or a dragon, or whatever. There's no reason why humans, in this world where there's all these creatures, and you can see that certain things are stronger than you, or wiser, or that kind of thing, why you wouldn't typify them as the kind of the exemplar of that facet of your personality. I think it's kind of like the Egyptian gods, where they had all the animal-headed creatures as their gods. They didn't look human. Slightly different take on it, but so all the gods are evident, and they have like a home layer, as it were. Again, bit of a planescapey kind of twist on things. And therefore the more gods of a certain type, the more the general alignment and creatures you'll experience and meet on that layer will be leaning towards that. So on Harlig, it's harsh, it's all about survival. And Imbix Alphiax, which is the great ice dragon, is constantly trying to fight the civilized people there to get down to the layers below and bring the ice with it down. In the same instance, in Zadumir, which is down at the bottom, there is I'll get down to it in a minute. There is the great devil-possessed dragon. Where are we? Let's scroll down so I don't get it wrong. Thuthrox is the devil-possessed red dragon overlord of the hellish minions of Zadumir. It represents hate, anger, destruction, and purest evil. All those that worship are its slave and march against the forces of good around the mountain. Thuthrox would burn the entire world given the chance. So you go from the icy, hellish area to the fiery, hellish area at the bottom, and in between you have all these other layers. So Harlig, the icy realm, Yaneth, floating islands, honor-bound cultures, skyfaring cultures, seafaring cultures, therefore. Glorim, which is the Fey realm, or the first world as it's known in Planescape cosmology. Correct me if I'm wrong. And there it's all overgrown plants, and it's either nice and lovely and verdant, or it's overgrown and horrible and manky and spiders and undead creatures. You've got Arlorn, which is the realm, which is your kind of typical Faerun, Kryn, world, that kind of thing going on there. There's continents. We're going to talk about one of the continents, and this is the kind of a lot of what will be created for this is framed in a you're starting on Arlorn and you're exploring the other planes, the other layers, or something is trying to attack Arlorn. Arlorn is seen as kind of the bounty of the World Mountain, the bit that everyone wants to get to, or influence in some way. It's one of the most populous regions, and therefore all the gods, all the powers want to sort of hang out there. You've got Udril, the Underdark. Couldn't not have the Underdark. We need to have that cool source for dark creatures, powerful, weird, fascist, organizations, and all this kind of stuff going on. That is the Underdark because it literally hangs underneath the Arlorn layer, so it sits so close that the sun that rotates around rather than up, around like that, it goes round, which is actually the power Seracron, doesn't reach there, so it's literally dark. It's dark and it's underneath, so it's the Underdark. And then below that you have Zadumir, which is known as the Deep, and you can see the little orangey glow. That is like hell kind of thing. And built around the mountain is the Mechanolith, which is this huge fortress, redoubt, wall structure all the way around. And you can see I've drawn that it's got a little break in it. That might give you some idea of what's going on down there. There is like a never-ending war of hordes of monsters and demons and creatures and all those foul things piling up to try and take out the Mechanolith. Down there are loads of dwarves and other ancestries, but mostly dwarves because they built it and know how it works, defending it. And their most honored warriors, when they die, their souls get placed inside mechanical structures like kind of giant warforged or those things out of Hellboy 2, that kind of thing, and they continue to defend the wall. And it's like a never-ending battle. And then the Ether Beyond is kind of the unknown, weird astral space. Is the world mountain floating in a never-ending emptiness, or are there other realms out there? Kind of question. So there's a lot going on. I wanted to throw lots of influences in. There's lots of people flying around. There's sky ships. It's not full-on Eberron level of kind of magic absorbed, magic twisted technology. There's not that kind of thing, but there's an edge towards it with, teleportation circles in cities, the major cities. There are airships and all kinds of stuff going on. Now, part of the big thrust of the main story, not only of Tears of the Dreamer, the show, but also the setting in general, is that there's like a constant, as I said, constant push for other gods and their followers to get into Arlorn and kind of take over that realm. And one of them, Maytalin, who's the god of revenge, murder, and tyranny, has made a bit of a stab at that. And the forces of Braktagar, which is a nation that worships them, has made their way up into Arlorn. Anyway, I'm prattling on. We're nearly half an hour into the stream. And I haven't made anything yet. Here we go. So anyway, this document tells you about each of the layers and each of the pantheons, and then a bit further down, some of the themes that I mentioned. So generally the worlds beneath Arlorn are seen as dark and dangerous. Powers and creatures there are constantly trying to reach up to high levels. Travel between layers is possible, but either massively expensive or life-threateningly dangerous. Arlon, Glorem, and Yaneth all suffer from threats from within as their resident civilizations do battle between themselves rather than protecting the world from lower threats. Maytalin is the primary threat to Arlon as his armies have marched up from Udril and pushing back Strondumir, which is the big dwarven civilization on Arlon. His currently is at stalemate, but more powers from below wish to aid him. Magical energy drifts down from Glorem to Arlon through mists, waterfalls, and aquifers draining through the rock of Glorem. So too does undeath come with it. All the playable races of Pathfinder supplements are possible and in fact live together to some extent on the layer of Arlon. Even members of more traditionally evil races have some more civilized elements. So this is also a hangover from Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. I think Pathfinder is a little bit different because Goblin is one of the main ancestries. I'm a big fan of orcs, hobgoblins, goblins, bugbears, all those kinds of things. I really like those monstrous races, and I've always wanted to include them. So, and in 5th edition D&D, there's like Xanathar's Guide to Everything and blah blah. There's various books that have lots of extra races. So I wanted this setting, to be inclusive of everything and allow you to use anything that comes up a bit later on and go, oh yeah, we can fit that in because they've finally done, I don't know, troglodytes. Okay, well, troglodytes probably hang out with the lizard folk up in the north, or some of them might hang out with the orcs in Erebag. So, and all those kinds of things. So, and then I've got a little mini short story, which if anyone needs convincing as to, or it tells you a little about Maytalin and the attack on Strondumir and why there are goblinoids hanging out in some of the major cities, that kind of thing. And then there's a little map, which is the map that I want to have a little look at. So it is actually useful for me having this on here. I'm not just. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. Yeah, you can see the map to the right there as well. But I've done a little one there. So what we've got here is this is the major continent of Arlorn, and we have the Trixothius in the north, which is the lizard folk. Othraxel is their capital. Lerdrya is a very mountainous region where water and mist comes down from Glorham above and settles as magical ice on these mountains, and the elves of Faniriath have kind of got themselves in a little bit of an isolation research study freak position where they're so busy looking at this ice and trying to understand the thoughts of the Dreamer, which is a giant Leviathan power creature up in Glorham, that they're kind of forgotten about the rest of the world. And all this other fighting's going on. So Ondrum, which is the world mountain, as you can see. I'm not sure if you can see my pointer on the screen, probably not. Strondumir in the north and Braktagar in the south, although they're not technically north and south. The Braktagar is the evil nation come up from underneath, and at one point it did take over Gomar, Zemrion, and Kagotra under one big banner. But in fighting Strondumir, they weakened themselves. Their leader was betrayed by their god of murder and revenge, doesn't like to be overshadowed by his worldly followers, and they kind of broke up. So some of the orcs, goblins, hobgoblins of the Braktagar nation sort of fled persecution and rigorous military life into Erebag on the coast. And then we've got Pargranin, Akadai, Morastabar, and Adalrin, which are human cities, big human cities. There are other towns and other cities on here, but I'll just put in kind of capital cities on. Erelos broke away from Nolos during a civil war at the time that Braktagar attacked Strondumir, which is why they didn't go and assist in that battle. You've got the Rimwood Wilds, which is an area that we're exploring in our campaign at the moment, the Tears of the Dreamer. And then down to the south, we have the Grand Empire of Thastain, which is a kind of militaristic, honor-bound culture that has taken over various cities in the south, Barcalis being its secondary capital. Thastain proper is like the big center of that empire, and it's on its own little island, and that whole area was Thastain. And then when they went over and conquered these other cities and countries on this bit of land here, they became the Grand Empire of Thastain. They haven't conquered Brangdumir, which Dumir is the Dwarvish word for holdfast, or not fortress because it means under the ground, but kind of holdfast kind of thing. Brangdumir there. And then so there's a few other things. There's other continents on this realm. I just haven't got to those bits yet. I'm just still. This is kind of expanding as we go. So yeah, we're having fun with them exploring this. It's sort of, it's taking them. It would probably take them a couple of weeks to trek across this from Faniriath to Pargranin. There's quite a bit away, and This is it's been a lot of fun. I've been enjoying using Inkarnate, as I said earlier on, and I've been using it a lot more for maps in Roll20 as we've been doing. So that's been a lot of fun. So anyway, that's a hello. Is that the one? That's the one. So what are we doing? We're doing Ancestries of the World Mountain. There's a long way around getting there, wasn't it? Cool. If anyone's got any questions or see something on the screen they want me to clarify, please do. I realise this is kind of a stream of consciousness with a bit of updating and maybe a bit of typing coming in. So this document is designed to help players and GMs adapt the standard ancestries of Pathfinder Second Edition to the World Mountain setting. World Mountain is a place that binds all planes together and has a piece of each manifest on at least one of the layers. Therefore, all forms of people, ancestries, and heritage can be found there, plus some new ones. Each layer of Ondrum sees a different mix of heritages, which are discussed below. However, these are merely the majority, the stereotype, and any heritage can be found on any layer if you look hard enough. This section refers to content found in Chapter 2 of Pathfinder Second Edition and the Ancestry sections of Pathfinder Second Edition Lost Omens Character Guide. As further books expand on Ancestries and Heritage, the document will be expanded. In nearly all cases, the you might, others probably, physical description and alignment leanings are retained as in the books. However, there are society and religion specifics for the World Mountain that should replace those in the books. So what does that mean? Well, if you haven't used Pathfinder 2, oh, hello. Yeah, sorry. I turned the sound off because I was eating something. Yes. I was always saying, on here, in here, there's really useful bit which says, sorry about that. For each race, it says you might, and then it implies how you could role play or things that you as a dwarf would want to do, like strive to uphold your personal honor no matter the situation. Then there's a section that says others probably, which is how should you look at dwarves if you're not playing a dwarf, or how should you expect others to treat you when you're out there. Others probably assume you're an expert in matters related to stonework, mining, precious metals, and gems. Well, they're right, you're a dwarf. Physical description, alignment, and names all stays pretty much the same, so you can just, dwarves are dwarfs. I don't want to suddenly say, well, my dwarfs have something really strange, but then that is encapsulated in heritages. Heritages. I haven't been drinking. And obviously, I want to describe the society slightly differently. So, what I'm doing here, right, and no, this won't be complete. This is this isn't complete, and it won't be complete tonight. I'm going to put a few things on here. This is really me just sharing a bit of my thought process with you, a bit about the setting, a bit about what I'm trying to do with it, and maybe get your feedback on some heritages that I'm designing or coming up with. I had a where's my notebook gone? Aha, here it is. I made a little grid because one thing I liked in the Lost Omens character guide is it gave you an idea of which regions of the world would have which kind of dwarves. Let me see if I can find an example. So I thought someone was knocking on my door. Here we go. Dwarves. Where are we? Mountain dwarves. I may have picked exactly the wrong person to go for. I remember there was one in the elves. Here we go. The Iodine elves. Most Iodine have the ancient elf, whisper elf, or woodland elf heritage. Though due to the elves' ability to adapt to their environments, they could manifest any heritage. So it gives you an idea. So what I want to do is have, for each layer of the world mountain, which heritages are the most appropriate, and then any extra ones, because I want to add a couple more that are, you know, unique to the world mountain. So what I've done is really scruffy. Is I made myself a little. How can you see this? Made myself a little grid with all of the realm, all of the layers down here, and then all of the. You can see I had a bit of a second thought about something going along here, and I've been coming up with additional heritages for the ancestries, not races. Okay, so dwarf. Here we go. The dwarves were the first people hewn by Ondrum from their own body and set upon their flanks to fashion the layers. An army of dwarves built, crafted, and forged their way across the planes of existence. Drawing in the essence of each of those places, they brought life and all the myriad flora and fauna. When their work was done, Ondrum took from them the burden of creation so that they might live among that which they had wrought. So this is just like a little bit of extra flavor text to say, how are dwarves, what is the slightly different thing about dwarves in the world mountain, or their history kind of thing. All right, society and religion. The greatest dwarven cultures are found on Harlig, Arlorn, and Zadumir, but they can be found on all the layers. Dwarves see the defense of the world mountain from evil and corruption as their ancestry's solemn duty. However, the numbers of dwarves have dwindled, since theirs is the war against the dark. Long lifespans lead to fewer children, and when war consumes large portions of a people, the opportunity to further the dwarven line is cut. Many on Arlon now don't know the sacrifice the dwarves have made. So long has it been that darkness stalked the realm. Until now. Because obviously the whole point of the setting is that things are starting to emerge into Arlon. It's been sat there being civilized for a very long time, which has obviously led to its own wars and everything. But it's it's all about to go the wrong way. Dwarves. So the dwarves used to be gods, but now they are fallen people. Not necessarily gods, and I wouldn't say fallen. I would say they were like the chosen or angels kind of equivalent. Given the tools to help fashion the world, because Ondrum is a big mountain. Although it's a power, it's also a big mountain and kind of spawned the dwarves. They went out and built everything as it desired, and then it went, "Thank you, well done," and took that great burden away from them so that they could enjoy that world that they'd created. So I wouldn't say fallen, but I see what you're saying, Eggle. Yep, no, interesting. Yeah, yeah. So what I'm doing, and you'll see this, I do this a lot in what I'm doing. So I kind of create placeholders. So like elf is all blank, and it's just elves of each kind. And what are we doing? Here we have got. I've done the same, but I start to replace them with names for here we go, Dumir. So Strond Dumir, and then there's Brang Dumir. These are both Arlorn civilizations. So what I want to do is I want to kind of break out each one. The Bergbreaker clan is the Harlig group, and then Mechanolith clans. So there's, as I said earlier on, there are there's the big Mechanolith, which is like this big fortress, mechanical elements to it, kind of robotic construct kind of creatures, golems defending it. And then these other ones where there's not anything that's necessarily specific at this time, or that it's not one of their major ones. I'm just going to put Dwarves of Yaneth, for example, and then kind of expand on that. Now, what I have done is I've created a few extra heritages that I'm doing for this. Now, each heritage gives you special abilities, or a special ability, and it's a minor extra thing. That's just like a small distinction between you and the other types of dwarves. I will give you an example from the Pathfinder 2e book. Forge Dwarf. You have a remarkable adaptation to hot environments from ancestors who inhabited blazing deserts or volcanic chambers beneath the earth. This grants you fire resistance equal to half your level, minimum 1, and you treat environmental heat effects as if they were one step less extreme. Incredible heat becomes extreme, extreme becomes severe, and so on. So that's it. That's what makes you a forged dwarf. Now, obviously, I'm gonna be saying, oh right, okay, where do they sit? And what I'm going to do in the first instance is just kind of punch in for each of these layers what the primary types of dwarves are, and I can tell you a little bit about them. So ancient, ice, and Oathkeeper. So ice dwarves. Now, ice dwarves is basically a copy of that power that I just read out to you, but it's cold instead of fire. Yeah, which is an ability that both the elves and I think it's goblins have. Is it goblins? Yeah, snow goblins get that ability. But I thought since dwarves have a large congregation on Harlig in the Bergbreaker clan, they've got this giant flying iceberg citadel with great chain bridges out to sub-bergs, and they go around. This thing flies around, and they kind of smash the crap out of evil dragons and stuff. It's pretty cool. I thought an ice kind of dwarf would be useful and appropriate. Dwarves are hardy folk, and if the elves can survive the cold, then I think the dwarves can too. So basically, I've created the ice dwarf. It's nothing revolutionary. That one is just kind of like, yep, this is an ability that I've seen somewhere else. There's another heritage for other ancestries that do this, so I've replicated it for the dwarves because the dwarves have a big population on Harlig, which is that top layer of the world mountain, which is cold. That's a really simple way of creating a new heritage. That is copy paste, give something from one to another. Now, obviously, doing that a lot will just mean all of the ancestries have exactly the same heritages, which would be boring. Well, I think it would be a bit boring. You want them to be a bit different. But for that one, I thought ice was an important one to have. So ancient blooded dwarf, ancient blooded, and I will obviously I'm going to go into this and add more text around what they do and what they are. but I often like to do sort of a bullet point. Flying iceberg, citadels, chain bridges between fortress bergs, fly around kicking dragon butts. Very simply encapsulate it, and then I'm going to go back in. Trading hub for many cultures. So it's kind of like a nomadic. That was the other bit I forgot to say. Whenever the other cultures of Harlig see the Bergbreaker clan Sky Fortress coming, they're like, "Cool, it's trading time. We're going to get some cool stuff to help us fight these evil creatures, whichever they are." So let's just whack some bullet points in there. I'm also I get a bit funny about trying to distinguish a little bit between my elements. I know I shouldn't really go into too much kind of, it's not really layout, but you know what I mean. Because it's all going to change, but it helps to just delineate that, and probably for the viewer to see it a little clearer. I'm not. These ones I'm not going to go into too much right now because I need to do a little bit of figuring out of where, with the other ancestries, how, say, for Battleberg Dwarf Lactica. Yes, excellent, Eggle. I'm going to make a note of that just at the bottom. Battleberg Dwarf Lactica with an exclamation point. So, cool, excellent, yeah. Right, Yaneth. So the Sky Islands of Yaneth is kind of like the lame version of the Bergbreaker clan if you're a dwarf. Yeah, they go around on their boats, they fly around between these things, but they don't actually ride the islands themselves. And there's kind of lots of honor-bound cultures because of their all flying around. They've all got their little distinct territories. It gets quite territorial. They're fairly um, militaristic, but not always in a aggressive fashion, not in a totalitarian fashion. Some of them are sort of strength of arms and honor amongst compatriots, that kind of thing. Excuse me. So, Dwarves of Yaneth, what I've got here is rock. Oh, let's do them in alphabetical order, shall we? Rock and rock. So ancient blooded. Don't know if I talked about that one. There's a bit of magic in their blood from a long time ago. This is a standard one. You see, I haven't put a little asterisk against any of those. Ancient blooded, innate magic resistance. So basically, this takes a reaction. You only get one reaction a turn, same as before. The trigger is you attempt a saving throw against magical effect, but you haven't rolled yet. So someone's like, right, you've got to make a will save against this spell. I have to go to bed now. Good luck with the world building. See you later, Egil. Thank you very much for joining us. Always good to have you and your contributions. Battleberg Dwarf Lactica is, yeah, that's great. That's definitely going in there. So basically, this Ancient Blood allows them to resist magic. They get a bonus to their saving throw. Oathkeeper is Oathkeeper Dwarf. Oh, hello. That's in the other book. So this is where the Lost Omens come in. So again, as I said earlier on, and hello if you've recently joined us and you're trying to figure out what the hell I'm doing, I'm looking at heritages for ancestries for my World Mountain setting. Let's have a look. So, Anvil. Oh no, rock is a new one, isn't it? Yeah, sorry. Here we go. I think I changed it to... Is that right? Where's that rock come from? I think I've changed that to steel dwarf. I believe. Steel, yes, yeah, because I had runic, that was it. So I had rock and runic, and I was like, 2 R's, I don't know. I just want to have, maybe I haven't changed that in my notes. Steel. These guys are going to be possibly contentious heritage, because it's going to give them some resistance, but not all the time. They have to kind of call upon it. A mixture between the fire resistance and ice resistance that we've seen. They're okay to have all the time because you don't get fire and ice damage as much as you do, say, your standards: bludgeoning, piercing, slashing. So I was thinking that these steel dwarves could have something within them that they can call upon, and like literally their skin becomes tougher, and they gain damage resistance to piercing weapons, but it requires the use of a reaction. So they can't, if they've made an attack of opportunity or they've used another ability that uses up their reaction, they won't be able to use it. So it's kind of got a little limiter on it, so it's not too crazy, because obviously that could be pretty killer. People defend yourselves against arrows. Okay, let's have a look. So Glorim, although this you would think is typically a kind of elven realm, remember the dwarves built all of the world, so there are dwarves hanging out in Glorim, and they are kind of lone rangery, fighting the undead type dwarves, and therefore we have strong-blooded and Death Warden. So the Death Warden dwarf, your ancestors have been tomb guardians for generations, and the power they cultivate to ward off necromancy has passed on to you. If you roll a success on a saving throw against a necromancy effect, you gain a critical success instead. There are lots of different ways heritages can give you a bonus. Sometimes they're bonuses to skills, sometimes they're resisting types of magic, sometimes they're mechanical saving throw, damages, etc. So it's quite cool. It's quite a cool little feature, and because they're unique, you can kind of cook up anything you want. There's no kind of set rules. So that's fighting necromancy. So that was the idea, that on Glorim is this overgrown plant. First World taps into it. It's either verdant and lush, or overgrown, necrotic, and evil, basically. I think Zon is the god of necromancy and undeath and unliving, and is therefore a major power on that realm. So it's quite interesting. Quite interesting. That's a good way to describe my own setting, isn't it? Right, Strondumir. Strondumir and Brangdumir will have pretty much the same same subsets of. So let's have a look. Ancient Blooded, where we've got magic resistance. We've got Anvil, which we'll talk about in a bit. We've got, let's do this in the right order. Strong Blooded. Oh, I need to cover that one off in a minute, don't I? Mountain. Now that is my one. There we go. Strong-blooded. See, my double lettery thing doesn't really work. I meant that. So I said earlier on, I didn't want to create a rock one and a runic one, because they're 2 R's. I just like to spread things across the alphabet a little bit when I create things. I don't like clumped up, lots of F's, lots of cities beginning with the same letter and things like that. Just my own little OCD thing. So this is the largest dwarf society on the world mountain. Constant state of holding back the evil forces of Skeletor. No, sorry, of Udril, and recently lost ground to forces of to Talon worshipping forces of Braktagar. Braktagar was a hobgoblin who rose in the ranks and was a powerful war chief and champion of Talon, so had powers from Talon. However, the nation wasn't called Braktagar. They didn't have a name. They were kind of cobbling themselves together and conquering other places. And when he had conquered all of the islands, Gomar, Zemrion, and Kogotra, the people around him kind of elevated him to kind of hero status and named their new nation after him. In so doing, the jealous revenge god that they all worship decided that maybe someone needed to be taken down a peg or two. So in the big fight between Braktagar and the Strondumir dwarven chief, Talon withdrew the powers that it had offered Braktagar, and he fell. And then after that, because his vicious, efficient mind wasn't in place, Braktagar nation started to fall apart, and some places kind of went independent. Cool. Okay. Recently was granted to Talon, worshipping forces of Braktagar. Cool. And this is like a deep tunnels, redoubts, and clan halls within Ondrum itself. Cool. So Strondumir is that's kind of overview right now. Lesser dwarf society on Arlorn, the realm, surrounded on the surface by Grand Empire of Thastain. A vast tunnel system exploring routes down to Udril overhang. So they're big engineering twist on things, and as dwarves normally do. However, these ones are actively looking downwards, not to cause anything evil or mess about with anything. They just want to explore. They are not in direct contact with the dwarves from Strondumir, and therefore they're kind of curious about the world below, which maybe is foolish. Cool. Sorry, I'm making popping noises on the microphone. That's a bit silly, Peter. Here we go. So let's get that there. Okay. What I will do is I will add to each of these some more details. I want to go into things around their clothing, what makes them slightly different about their fashion, their tools and equipment, the way they make things. You know, is there, when you see an axe fashioned in Strondumir, how is it different to one fashioned in Brangdumir? Those kinds of things. So, Dwarves of Udril, I'm not gonna. This is basically the Durgar and the dark dwarves. So let's have a look. Mountain, yep, that's fine. Oathkeeper, Doors of Drill. Here we go. We have Death Warden. Anvil. Let's have a look. This must be in here. So, Anvil Dwarf, you're a descendant of a famed crafter and have your own amazing talent. Other dwarves might consider this a blessing from your ancestors or from the Forge Father himself, depending on where you grew up. You become trained in crafting, or another skill if you already have trained in crafting, and gain the specialty crafting skill feat, but you can pick 2 different specialties instead of 1. That's quite cool. And it's quite specific. If it says you can become trained in crafting or another skill if you're already trained in crafting. If you're trained in crafting, you can't go up to expert. You just have to stay at the level that they indicate. Cool. Let's have a look. So, Anvil. Yeah, I've got Anvil on that one as well. That's good. Anvil, Death Warden, and Runic. So my idea for the Runic Dwarf is one where one of their ancestors had powerful runes carved upon their body, or the dwarf themselves does, and in some way this creates this gives the character a spell that they can summon through the power of their blood, and I think it's going to be an occult cantrip that they can produce. Occult, just looking at it, occult looked a bit more utility than arcane, which is quite aggressive. Divine is obviously quite protection and healing, and primal was a bit too planty for my liking. So the runic dwarf will have the ability, will gain a cantrip that they can use with their class DC as the saving throw if applicable, etc. as kind of standard. So that's quite cool. Okay, let's have a look. Yes, runic, and yeah, cool. Okay, deep dwarves. In vast mining clans, small roving parties. Yeah, I think we need some of that under there as well. So just a couple of bullet points there, just to make myself think. Okay, here we go. Mechanolith, defending the World Mountain, circling citadel known as the Mechanolith. Honor and duty bound to protect the world from evil in death. Spirits are captured inside construct shells to continue the fight. Cool. Yeah, so they're kind of their clans are built around certain tasks. On the Mechanolith, Big Beanhead, hi, hello, thanks for joining us on the YouTubes. We are doing some heritage creation for Ancestries for Pathfinder 2. I'm currently going through Dwarves for the World Mountain setting. and we have just got onto the Mechanolith clans. So, who's your favourite YouTuber? Oh, blimey, that's I don't. The YouTubing I watch is all about role playing, tabletop role playing. So I like Critical Role. Have to roll that one out first. I also like Happy Jack's RPG, and I like Dungeon Musings. Who else do I like? There's Heavyweight Gaming and a couple of other ones. Let me have a look. I'll tell you what, I can tell you my subs. That'll help you out, won't it? That's an interesting question. My favorite YouTuber is The Tree Guys. Hey, Chris Colbert, how are you doing? Thanks for joining us. Doing a bit of world building for Pathfinder 2. Here we go. Zweihander, you watch the Zweihander guys? Reluctant Artsy does some really cool commentary on role playing. And Adventurers Wanted are another good UK based streaming channel. They do a lot of Twitch. And who else have we got? Yeah, you know, there's a few of the regulars, Bud's RPG Review, etc., etc. Thanks for joining us. Right, so clans of dwarves are built around particular tasks of Mechanolith. Defensive, construction, artillery, construct, building, and magical defenses. Warding, I'll call it warding. There we go. Cool. And the types of, so obviously these are all going to be heat and crafting based. Elemental Heart. Not a big fan of that name. I'm going to put in brackets fire, because if you are the Elemental Heart Dwarf, which is in the Lost Omens character guide for Pathfinder Second Edition, can basically create an energy emanation, and I do like that. And this basically it allows you to deal 1d6 damage of your chosen type to all adjacent creatures with a basic reflex save for half. Now, they can do that once per day. Fine. I think it's a third level, and every 2 levels thereafter, the damage increases by 1d6. So, you know, at 13th level, you're doing 7d6 points of damage once a day. Still a fairly, you know, still a fairly useful one at a higher level, even though it's just once a day. But I put fire because I think they would be of the fire damage, because they're down in Zadumir, which is like hell, with fire and flame and devils and demons all around the Mechanolith, forever trying to climb over and kill everybody and climb up the World Mountain to kill everybody else. So it's pretty hardcore. And then forge, and then I think steel as well. So those are the basic facts of the Mechanolith clans, which are, I should put in here, on Zadumir. Cool. And then I've done some new heritages. So as I said, we've done the Ice Dwarf, Ebon Heart. It was more the heart bit that I wasn't too pleased with. Elemental was not, you know, I don't mind it being called elemental, because if they're down there, it's going to be fire. But Elemental Heart makes me think of Care Bears or something. I'm not sure. All boldly answer. Hello, hello. What's your favorite? Oh, yeah. Cool. Right. So I'm not 100%. I'm nearly there. I'm nearly there. Nearly there. Okay, so Ice Dwarf You or your ancestors dwell in the frozen lands of Harlig, resulting in you having incredible resilience against cold environments, granting you cold resistance equal to half your level, minimum 1. You treat environmental cold effects. So this is like, as I talked about earlier on, this is like the fire effect that we talked about with the Forged Dwarf. So this is the Ice Dwarf. I might call it something else. I might call it a Berg Dwarf or something like that. Care Bears. The campaign is taking a dramatic twist. Absolutely. There's going to be Care Bears all over the Rimwood Wilds to for the party to brutalize and mutilate. Right, Steel Dwarfs. Your ancestors' blood pumped through hearts forged in steel. Defending the Mechanolith made the dwarves born there. Come on. They're tough and resilient. Now, I'm going to type it up so it looks proper with the right little stamp and everything. But basically, this is going to be a use reaction to activate. What do we call this? Piercing resistance. Yes. Piercing resistance. That's spelled wrong, as it told me. Where are we? I'm trying to look at the text. Here we go. Equal to half your level. Minimum 1. Now that's pretty that's a pretty hardcore ability. I'm aware that some people may be looking at it and thinking, whoa, that's pretty. So maybe use an action rather than, reaction. Let's put action. Let's have a look. But that's the idea of the Steel Dwarfs. This is a choose an occult. I'm afraid not. Choose an occult cantrip. And this is slightly similar. Although I think there's one that does arcane. Where are we? Here we go. Nope. That was a feat, I think. Yeah. Let me just make sure there's not a dwarven feat at first level that does the same thing. I don't think so. No, there isn't. That's good. Staying cunning. Excuse me. Crane stance. That's my favourite stance. Let's have a look. Choose one cantrip from the arcane spell list. Yeah, this is choose one cantrip from the occult spell list. That's what that's going to be. Cantrip from the occult spell list. Yep, there we go. I'll give some flavor text to that at some point. Right, and then this is probably the other one that's might get people a bit excited. Mountain Dwarf descended directly from the dwarves, hewn from Ondrum's body before the great burden was released. You are made of sterner stuff. Your bones are part stone and your skin is thicker than other dwarves. You gain 12 hit points from your ancestry instead of 10, which means that a Mountain Dwarf Barbarian would have 24 hit points plus Constitution modifier at first level, so could have somewhere in the region of, what's that, 12, 24, 30 hit points at first level, which would be pretty crazy. Cool. Right, so that's a bit about dwarves, a bit about Ondrum, the World Mountain, a bit about stances and Care Bears and a few other things. So that's pretty cool. I'm probably going to finish the dwarven stuff there. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the Games Master Guide It's very, as I said, very cool book. In here, it's got, I mean, it has variant rules. It has a big NPC gallery at the back, which is very nifty, very handy for pulling out those useful characters for different things. As I said, it's got 50 odd pages of Games Mastery basics, but then it has all these tools for building creatures, hazards, items, intelligent items, artifacts, and then a bit about worlds and nations. And this is the bit I wanted to get onto. So although this isn't kind of rocket science or world shattering stuff, what it does allow me to do is just to, let me just get back to here. So there's a building worlds, can you see that? Building worlds section, and takes us through your design approach, top down, bottom up, the world, basics, environment, mapping a world, civilization, what's the technology, how involved are the divine elements, settlements, religions, pantheons, cosmology, how it all fits together. I mean, I've talked a bit about that today, about my design approach to the world mountain. As you can see, I'm just exploring this at the moment and trying to build upon it. But what I wanted to do was to have something inclusive of all of Pathfinder Second Edition, all of that stuff, and then allow you to kind of get rolling with it fairly swiftly to like jump in and not leave anything out. So if you see something in the book and you're like, oh, I'd really love to play that, then it will be permissible in the world mountain. Things like leshies. I wasn't expecting that. Obviously, I hadn't played that much of first edition, so I was kind of like, "Oh, these are interesting." Fungus, and at first I was like, "Oh, I'm not used to this." And druids and things like plant things are probably my least favorite characters. But I thought, no, hang on, there's place for this. Glorim is a bountiful world. It's verdant. It's green, and also Udril, the fungus Leshy could be coming from Udril. So I've been trying to push myself to not. Normally, I'd kind of go, "Oh, I don't like that," so I'll leave that bit out. But I wanted this to be, the vine Leshy come from Yanath, the leaf from Glorim, the fungus from Udril, and the gourd from Arlon. Stuff like that. So trying to look at it a different way, and this kind of pushes you to like think about each of these elements when you're building your world. Um, and gives you a few examples of how you might do things, you know. But then also what it has is nations, and it has settlements, and it gives you. And some people may find this a bit weird, but I think this is actually quite useful. It gives you a stat block. It shows you a stat block for a nation. I'm not sure if you can read that. No, probably not. But it codifies some of the core elements of a nation. So basically you just have the overriding alignment and any other traits that it may have, and then a brief description followed by government, capital, population, languages, religions, then primary exports, enemies, factions, threats, and then notable NPCs such as like the leader, the queen or king, or whoever's in charge, the religious magnates, and all kinds of other stuff. And it's quite a nice little short piece that I can use to then go, right. And it's something I would have done something very similar of anyway. But with this kind of Pathfinder approach, I can kind of whack that in here, quickly write down all those titles, and then I can start to flesh it out in a very Pathfindery way, which is cool, and then add all the flavor text in afterwards, and work on it. And often those bullet points that I create allow sort of spawn into bigger pieces and then allow me to go in different directions, which is quite cool. I do like they've also done settlement stat blocks as well, and it gives you things like, a settlement level, which gives you an idea of either the size of it, or the number of settlements, or the number of units, or the size of the population, or the size of the city, or the size of the town, or the size of the or the max level of NPC that you'll meet there, which is quite interesting. And then again, you have like alignment, any other um, traits, and then government, population, languages. Just stuff like that is quite useful just to look at, and you can go, oh, it's mostly humans, even though 60% humans, 3% half orcs. You're like, well, what does that matter? You can think, or you go in the tavern, there's one half orc in the corner, kind of thing. Gives you a good idea. Then core religions, threats, trinket trade. This is interesting. Pirate town. Oh, here we go. So, other characteristics. Settlement might have distinctive features that affect its residents or visitors entering the city, such as a particular trade that makes certain items more available. Cool. There you go. So, like, here's the special thing about trade or availability in this settlement. It's just a nice little reminder for you, a creative reminder, so that you can kind of go in, have a look at it, and go, oh yeah, I need to think of something interesting about that village. Could be something fairly basic, but it gives that little bit extra. Um, and then it goes into the plains. But yeah, so what I'll be doing is I'll be putting together kind of these Pathfinder stat blocks for first off the nations. So that'll be like the start of each nation summary. Then there'll be all the flavor text, and then any cities will have, or notable settlements will have a stat block and then a bit of flavor text as well. So that's kind of where I'm going with it. I'm going to do this that I've done here, over here, for the other ancestries. I'm going to create a few more heritages. I've already come up with the Mead Elf and the Ether Elf. The Mead Elf is going to have more hit points, and the Ether Elf is going to be able to look into the ethereal realm, which will cost them. The Gnome Heritage, the Astral Gnome and the Cloud Gnome. I'm yet to finalize what I want to do. Cloud Gnome is going to be about sailing or sky sailing, and Astral Gnome is going to be sort of foretelling and maybe some sort of spell. I'm going to look up a spell to see if there's one effect that they can have. We're going to have magma goblins down in the Zadumir, and they basically puke up fire. And I haven't done any new halfling heritages yet. We will get to that. But also to humans, I'm going to add in half giant as a heritage, so that you can be, so they've got half elf, half orc, but then also half giant. Because on the top of the Sky Islands of Yaneth, they all float around the peak of Ondrim, and on top of there is a city called Yondengrid, which is the city of good giants, and other ancestries as well, not just giants, but there are good giants there. So I want to kind of bring that in. Now, the Lost Omens book introduces hobgoblins, one of my favorites, and hobgoblins so far in the Tears of the Dreamer show have been the kind of main protagonists, and they are the kind of heads of Braktagar Nation. So that's there. So I'm going to explore hobgoblins. They've got Elfbane, Warmarch, Warren, Smokeworker, Runt Boss, and I'm going to come up with a couple more for those. Then you've got the Leshy, as I said. I'm going to try and come up with one for Zadumir and one for Harlig. I'm going to do some research on plants that grow in very hot environments, very cold environments. It might be something like a cactus Leshy that can like chuck spikes out or something. I don't know. That's just something that's kind of floating around in my head. The lizard folk. Just to end, who is the tallest arguments? Yes, indeed. Yeah. Then Variel won't be able to stand up to the half giants. The lizard folk. We've got cliffside, frilled, unseen, wetland, and Sandstrider. I'm going to come up with a couple more for that as well, I think. And then I said half giant. I'm going to add to humans, so that's what we've got there. However, I'm aware that, excuse me, there are a load coming in the Advanced Player's Guide, which is coming out later on in the year, which I'm very much looking forward to. I know Orc is going to be one of those. They're Tieflings and Asimar, the Duskwalker, Changelings, and a few other things are going to be in there. So I'm sort of holding out for those and kind of keeping a place in my mind for what role they may fit into this this world and this setting. So I've been on Reddit and talking to a few people about what ancestries are coming, and therefore I want to be able to make a space for them, as it were, in the world mountain, so that you can just, when the book comes out, someone can go, oh, hey, I want to play an orc, and I go, yeah, hey, I've already thought about how they fit in. And I say all this assuming that at some point I'm gonna produce this. Is there a bear race? Ooh. Now, I had thought about doing beast folk, and the beast folk would have, Minotaur, and Aarakocra, and I was going to have Kenku in there and things like that. A big one of my players really wants to play a big bear person, as in they're tall and naked, or they're part bear, or they turn into a bear, or that you could skin that. You could take half orc and do a little twist on it, and make a bear person, and just flavor it that they're bigger, they're stronger, they're tougher, and maybe it's that they're a big bear. I tell you what, here you go. We're going to do this right now. Take the goblin. It's going to sound weird. There is a goblin heritage that you could use. Where are we? Goblin heritage. Razor Tooth Goblin. Your family's teeth are formidable weapons. You gain a Jaws unarmed attack that deals 1d6 piercing damage. You could use something like that, you know? Why not? But what I like Ursines, always a big bear. So literally just a bear, or like half, or like, halfway between man and bear. Can they talk? Anyway, that's quite an interesting one. Yeah, so my thought on that was beast folk. And in fact, you could just see I've written it just up. You probably can't see it on the screen, but I've written beast folk. I had a spare column after deciding against lizard and then going with it, which I put later on. I put beast folk in, and I'm thinking that I might take some of the animals that are bears, is a good example. Ursines, minotaurs, centaurs, all that kind of thing. Where do they fit in? I want it to be, I like the idea of having like a bucket that they fall into, and then you pick the heritage that is the type of animal. So they're all fairly hardy, let's say. Their bonuses are like constitution and something else. And their floor is probably, I'm going to say it, probably intelligence. And then you pick a heritage, which is your type of animal, and that gives you a very basic ability. And then your ancestry feats have the flavor for flavor's the wrong word, Peter. They have the trait of bear or centaur or whatever. So certain ancestry feats require you to be certain type of I don't know if they're that focused actually, ancestry feats, but maybe for the beast folk they could be. So you could say, where are we? I mean, they would beast folk. I would say they get 10 hit points. Are we Xander? Are you talking about Pathfinder 2 now, or are you talking about D&D? If you're talking about Pathfinder 2, I'd say they get 10 hit points, they're medium size, speed 30. Ability boosts would be Constitution, um, Wisdom, free. Ability floor would be Intelligence. Languages common, and I'd have like beast languages available to them, because they can talk to animals or something. Sylvan would be an option as well. Traits would be beast and humanoid, and they would have low light vision. Then I would have a heritage based around, yeah, Pathfinder 2. Okay, cool. So hopefully this is relevant then. I would have a heritage based around each animal type and have that give them an ability or some kind of additional. So bears, you might want to give them some sort of a claw. I was using first edition, but moving over to second. Yeah, I really like it. I don't know why. I've just picked it up and I've just been like, I really like this. It just kind of clicks. I like the action economy in combat. I like the ancestries and heritages. I think the classes are done well. I think generally just and the books are really nice. They look quite dense and like full of stuff when you get them, but once you get into it and you start to understand it and the layout of it, you're like, this is really nice. The one downside is the character sheet looks like some sort of advanced algorithm you've got to fill in. But again, once you get it, you're all over it. And if you use something like Roll20, like we're all having to right now, the team have found it really useful to like get their heads around Pathfinder. I think if you do Roll20 for a bit and then go tabletop, you probably have a better understanding if you're just like a once a week player. So Xandered, maybe you're on our Discord, so maybe we can have a chat on the Discord. They do seem to be done really well, both in terms of looks and layout. They're just really nice books. I would say they could have, this is quite big, but I prefer these tomes about this thick, where I can read it in the bath. So yes, where was I? Beast Folk. I think that's one to explore on the Discord. Which, if anyone else who's watching wants to join us on our Discord after the live stream, there will be a link for that below. Anyway, I think it's probably about time that I round it up. I am, as I said earlier on, sitting in my shed, and it's a little bit chilly out here. Yeah, actually, it's not too bad. So, here we go. Please don't forget to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We also have a Discord where you can join in conversations about things like this. So the Xandered, who's been commenting on the video while we've been live, is on our Discord, and we're going to have a chat about Beast Folk tomorrow. So that's pretty cool. Also, please check out our Patreon. We have some really awesome people who support us through Patreon. Thank you, everyone who does. If you like what you see on our channel, and there's a lot more at the moment, so have a look. Have a look. There's a big back catalogue over on YouTube if you're watching on Twitch. And if you like what you see, please consider supporting us. I know it's a difficult time for everybody right now, but the more people who support us, the more I can convince my wife that I should be doing this in the shed at 11:30 at night. I'm on the Discord and I'm really cool. Yes, you are the Xandered. You are really cool. Also, as I said, check out all our back catalogue. We currently have 2 shows on the channel. We have Mage Ascension Heist, our Mage the 20th anniversary edition game. Ben is running that game. And that's a really cool modern day heist. They've got an eclectic bunch of characters and players, and they're about to pull off a big heist. He did a cool 2 weeks earlier kind of thing at the beginning of the show, and it's a bit like Leverage or Ocean's 11 with magical powers and strange sewer creatures, I think, in the last one. But anyway, that's a load of fun. That's Tuesday nights. And on Thursday nights, we have Tears of the Dreamer, which I'm running, and that's our Pathfinder Second Edition show, where I've been having lots of fun creating inks, Inkarnate maps for isometric combat rather than top-down. Mage is great. Need to catch up a bit, but I've been loving what I've watched so far. Thank you, the Zandead. Excellent. Okay. On the Mage show, you can win dice set and a rolling tray. Go to episode 2 of the Mage show on YouTube. Comment with your favorite tradition and why on that video. And on Pathfinder shows, you can win a copy of one of... Oh, not that one. Ha! Wrong one. Either a core rulebook or a Games Mastery guide. Game Mastery. I like that. Game Mastery guide. All you have to do is go to episode 2 of that show. Go and subscribe. You have to subscribe for both of them. Subscribe and comment on that video with your favorite Pathfinder 2 class and why. And we will be giving out one of those winner's choice shortly after that. Mage will be announced on the 28th of April live on the show, and the Pathfinder competition will be announced on the 30th live on the show. So that's our shows next week. Tomorrow we have episode 5 of Tears of the Dreamer. Our heroes have just got to the tower that have been approaching for the last 4 episodes. They've just leveled up. There's some new cool magic items going on. I can't wait to see what they think of them. And yeah, it should be a lot of fun. So please do check out more of Garblag Games. Join us for all our shows, and there may be more shows coming soon. We are thinking about Tales of the Loop and Legend of the Five Rings. This Saturday, we've got Heavyweight Gaming taking over the show. They will be running some of the Garblagites through a Carbon 2185 adventure, which is D&D 5th edition in the cyberpunk future of 2185. We did a one-shot on the channel back in the studio days. It was a Christmas special, actually. Whoa, that was a while ago. So go and check that out as well, because that was I really enjoyed that. That was a lot of fun. And yes, we have more coming. I'll be doing some more world building episodes, and I'm trying to sneak in. We're going to have a little alien RPG show. So we're going to do, I think, 4 more episodes of Pathfinder, and then we're going to take a little break for 3 or 4 episodes. I'm going to do a little alien LV832 show. Which, oh, hang on. Hang on, let's go to not that one. Sorry, I'm just trying to round up the show and I've started talking about something else. Look at that. We have, I was thinking because I'm streaming and it doesn't like it. Oh, look at that map there. That's Ondrum, the Wild Mountain. Here we go. Garblag Games, Alien RPG. This link, the link for this is shared with all patrons. So again, more benefits for our patrons. LV832 is a near-Earth world on the very frontier of civilized space, near the edge of 3-world empire and unified progressive peoples territory. It's the only habitable planet in the system, which is dominated by a vast blue gas giant and a few meager rocks in inner orbits. Blah 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 blah. Yeah, so there's loads of stuff on there, and I'm building up a view on the planet and the colony and the personnel on the colony, and then the ship stuff here. That's off of my placeholder. Then what happens when the party arrives on the planet. Beyond this page, there are spoilers, and then they're not in there yet. But basically, each character will be getting a document that has their physical appearance, common knowledge, private knowledge, secret knowledge, goal, and their rival and their buddy. Now, this is a format slightly tweaked that I used for our mothership shows, which were a big hit on the channel. Our first mothership shows nearly had 5,000 views, which is like the most our channel's ever had, which is amazing. And thank you, all our mothership fans. You are awesome. Basically, the players have to read out the physical appearance and common knowledge about their character to everybody else. but then they have their private knowledge, secret knowledge, and goal to themselves, and that's often detrimental stuff that they wouldn't want people to know, or something if you blurted it out, people would look at you in a very different way, and the goal will be driving the players. Now we did that in a one shot before, and we actually did two one shots, one after the other. Halloween special live one, which was lots of fun as well. It's like 5 hours long with loads of fire extinguishers and kind of weird black thing absorbing people. Um, but here, yeah, that will be trying to drive them over 3 or 4 episodes, depending on how long people survive. And then each episode or session of the game, you have a rival and a buddy, and you can change it based on how you're going. And that rival and buddy is part of the Alien RPG mechanic. The rest of that there is just something I've done because I thought it was quite cool. And on the show they had them in envelopes, and I'd made the characters, and they had character sheet and this document and maps and things in there, and they all had to open them up on air and read them out. It was lots of fun. Anyway, so we'll be doing an alien show at some point. As you can see, I'm prepping for that already, and I may even do a world building episode about LV832 if people would find that interesting. But anyway, right, I've been going on for way too long. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. You're all fantastic people, even the slight trolling, whatever. Um, it's lots of fun, and I will be back soon. Maybe not next Wednesday, maybe the Wednesday after. I'll figure that out with El Capitano. But we are back tomorrow night with Tears of the Dreamer, and on Saturday with some Carbon 2185, and then it all starts again next week, Tuesday, Thursday. Great stuff. We'll see you soon. Thank you very much for watching Garblag Games. That was the World Mountain, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.